thank you so much for coming in here to breakout room 2, where we're going to be talking about Dr. Elena Desjardins' study on a correlation analysis of experiential and technology-enhanced learning on students' success in higher ed. Dr. Elena Desjardins is a learning and development leader with over 15 years of experience in higher education, instructional design, and research mentorship. She specializes in educational innovation, data-informed strategy, and faculty training. She serves as a faculty senate member, course developer, and award-winning educator here at Westcliff University. We're so fortunate to have her. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Desjardins.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here this evening, this morning. I see some of my colleagues here. It's so nice to see your faces and your names come through. And I know the time difference is pretty difficult, but they showed up. So I'm super proud of you all. My Thursday night class, which is tonight, most of my students are on here now, so hello to you all. And I appreciate you being here today. So today we're going to talk about a correlational analysis of experiential and technological enhanced learning on students, a success in U.S. higher education. This is a topic that is near and true to my heart. This afternoon, or a couple hours ago, I presented in another forum. That's what Joni and I were talking about before, on the Socratic method. And this topic here, I think, goes hand in hand. And hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have some insight, but also it'll be a nice way to wrap up such a fabulous research forum that Westcliff puts out every year. I've been lucky enough to be part of this process. This will be my second year. My first year, I actually won the Catalyst for Change Award here. This was the output of SOARS. And so here I am, the second presentation, and my esteemed students are in the audience. Thank you all. So let's get started. So what's some context of higher education? I think it's really important to bring in this conversation that technology is growing, it's adapting, it's changing. And we need to make sure that we as individuals in these spaces of higher education really find ways to develop studies, qualitative, quantitative, mixed method, that align to our current challenges. And we had a fantastic presentation right before this one. And many of the presentations that I had the ability to sit through this evening really highlights where we're at in terms of higher education, some theoretical foundations in terms of support mechanisms and the lack thereof. As we know, research is continually evolving, and also focusing on this present conceptual modeling-like system. The context of higher education, there's a sense of accountability and accreditation pressures. These are increasing and likely continue to increase. My years past, I was on accreditation committees, and this is very high stress scenario. The high stress scenario focuses on many different reasons and avenues. One, there is declines in retention for students, our newbie students that are coming in out of high school, our first gen students, students that have left the higher education realm and came back after years. There's just a decline in a general sense, retaining these students in the classrooms. Post-pandemic ratios and statistical analysis that have taken place after the COVID pandemic also created an influx of changes in terms of statistical analysis and worrisome, right? It was a huge worrisome process that many higher education spaces went through. There were pressures in terms of workforce relevance, finding new and innovative ways to retain the students inside of the walls of the classroom, and then finding opportunities to embrace data-driven decision-making cultures. And so the context of higher education, like I said before, continues to shift. And I think of it like sand shifting when you're shifting or manning for gold, right? This is what's happening in the context of higher education. Now, students' experiences are definitely flexible. They're definitely technological infused, and they continue to be scalable in terms of these evidence-based interventions. We are definitely operating in a new realm, an era of accountability or intensified accountability, and finding ways to adhere to accreditation protocols, but also finding ways to be able to settle with this urgency. That's the conversation here. Connecting on how students are learning, but also where students are learning through the use of these institutional places, and how are these students performing. So the Student Success Challenge is a deepening conversation, and we only have a very short period of time to talk about these slides, so I'll give you the big arch, big macro perspective. There is a gap between academic preparation and workplace readiness. This has been seen for years, and it continues to grow globally. Hyper focus in these little hubs across the United States. I'm from the New York area, Northeast. It's very much apparent in terms of creating these spaces for our students that prepare them academically, but also prepare them to lean into the workforce, right? To be college and career ready, but also to be the workplace ready as well. So this is a challenge that many universities, many colleges across the United States and abroad are really taking full center stage and grasping this, processing this, and then also finding these literature pieces and studies to enhance the understanding of these areas as well. 40% of students require additional preparation for the workforce. And, this is an important conversation to think of. It's not just the here and the now. It's about extending the opportunity for a deeper conversation. We had the initial presentation today, and I sat on the initial presentation early on in this session here, and I listened very closely, and I was watching the chat that came through, and the students were inquiring. I saw some of my students on there. They were asking questions. They were inquisitive. And that means something that's very great. It means that they're wondering. And that's really important to continue to bring into conversation, that not only are we here, we're present right at this moment, but we continue to wonder how we're able to prepare ourselves, but also use ourselves for an innovative and catalyst for opportunity and change. As we know, there's lots of equity gaps across many compounds of spaces, from first-gen students, from geographical considerations. I know for myself, being in the Northeast, there has been many changes in terms of urban planning and development post-pandemic that students have had to leave the traditional classroom sector to seek alternative ways to be educated because of the structural changes that have been taking place. Price points are astronomical in terms of training costs and focusing on remedial training services. And then also finding ways to tap into this notion of critical thinking, this Socratic-like ability, and finding ways to be able to support this holistically. These are the challenges that we're experiencing and much more. But for this purpose, we'll level into another piece of this puzzle. There's a promise here. This promise of experiential learning is very intuitive. It's very unique in terms of the structural entities. And it also highlights what we as faculty members and just individuals in these spaces are experiencing with our 21st century students. Technology is moving so quickly, so very quickly. And luckily, I've had the ability to sit on many of these presentations this evening. And the few that I sat on, we're hearing the notion of technology that's really driving from, the fibers of these conversations. There is a promise of experiential learning. And I think this promise is even more so apparent right here, right now, and right at this moment, because we have this conversation of learning, and then we have this conversation of experience. But we also have the need to apply these areas. And that's really what this experiential component really takes shape. Our students are trained in hard skill development to work on a particular skill bank, to perform a particular task. But it's the soft skill development that really creates this partnership with our students and for our students. And with this partnership, there's a lot of beneficial value. And again, looping back that into this retention inside of the classroom and the schoolhouse. There's the workhouse, and then there's a schoolhouse, and then there's the conjoined partnership between the two areas. And if there is no partnership between the two areas, then it becomes very difficult to scale the ability to reflect and repurpose our opportunities for future growth. So again, when we're thinking about these institutional commitments and we're trying to connect the dots between practice and purpose, we have to understand that there are broader success metrics that we are focusing on. And these success metrics continue in the conversation of retention, but also have this funneling like system in terms of civic responsibility, employability. Just recently, being a faculty member here at Westcliff, students are asking questions. Many of my students here are asking questions. They want to know what's ahead. Where are they going in terms of their future and jobs and internships and externships? I'm having those conversations with my students. Why? Because it prevents them the ability to not connect those soft skills, but it provides them hope. And I think that hope provides them the ability to see that there is a sense of demand for the skill, right? But there's also a sense of challenge, right? So they have the push and the pull that's happening every day. Every day that they're working on their tasks, they are pulled in all these different directions, and there's resource allocation that definitely becomes part of this conversation piece. When we're focusing on our institutional experiential learning processes or protocols, we have what these called is Carnegie Community Engagement Classification Systems. These are institutional signals that take shape to, in essence, create a categorical effect. And this categorical effect provides an indicator of commitment to engagement. And this notion of experiential learning, this is a much bigger conversation in terms of experiential learning as it loops into high impact practices. Now, high impact practices in the classroom or the schoolhouse, like I said before, creates an opportunity for students to have project-based learning, to have what is called reflective practices or protocols in the classroom, to lean into Socratic conversations or methods that are taking place. So when you think of these institutional experiential learning components, we have to find ways to continue to measure or to find a continuous measure of understanding. Not only are we finding ways to connect the dots to experiential learning, but we're taking a step back as well and checking out to see what has worked, what was successful, and if it was successful, why? Why did that take shape? because we want to learn from experience. Many of our students are coming into the classrooms, one, or being in a role, in a position, and then using their new and upcoming degree as a catalyst for continued growth. Secondfold, students are coming into the classroom not in any role. They are very new into the field, and they are very much unsure of their next pathway. And then you have the third student that is possibly in their second, third, or even fourth career. So we have many different categorical areas of students in our classroom, all in one single space. So when you think about how to target the needs of our students in that one space, we lean into what is called high impact practices and experiential learning to be able to support these levels of commitment from faculty members. As you know, and as I've been saying, and if you're part of these spaces of education in any form, technology enhanced learning is at its forefront right now. We're experiencing lots of different changes in the educational structure. Going back to the early days of LMS. Even before the 2000s. I wish I had a longer time span there, but years and years ago, I was with the old WebCT days. Now, I'm dating myself very much. But from that period of time, WebCT, to where we are now in 2025, technology has redefined its purpose in education. It has created access for opportunity for our students. It's created opportunity for pedagogy and andragogy to continue to shed light and shape the form of education. And it also provides ways to be able to highlight assessment for our students and also find ways to measure their success. We've progressed as an educational institution, not just here at Westcliff, but in the whole structural form. And research says that there are nearly 75% of students that have taken some type of an online course in their plight of being a student. That justifies that, one, the pathway of education continues to be redefined and defined by technological adoptions, right? But also, it definitely plays a role in terms of the correlation to success for our students and with our students. And when the pandemic hit some years ago, that was also an opportunity to create a acceleration of these online adoption protocols. Yes, this timeline is just a snippet of areas that we work through, and many of you here that have been part of the educational arena, you could definitely see the movement of where we're heading and the motion by which we're heading as well. Now we're going to get into some theoretical perspectives of how technological components shape our fields of being in the educational ecosystem. And I use that word ecosystem often because I think ecosystems, they thrive. They could thrive, I should say. They are robust and they are diversified in nature. And that's many of the conversations that we have here in terms of the technological impact that could be mediated by design or cultivated by some type of design that's happening in our classroom structure. There's a lot of technological components that lean into theory perspectives. One of them is what is called cognitive load theory. Cognitive load theory plays a role in the design or the optimization of mental processing. Luckily enough, we here at Westcliff University, we have spent a lot of time in research and development in terms of how this processing-like system frames technology, but also creates an enabler for higher order learning education. It creates an opportunity to be a delivery mechanism. Theory, part of this bigger conversation and this metacognitive prompting, also plays a role in scaffolding. Going back to an earlier slide where I hit on the notion of high impact practicing, this connects back into this metacognitive prompting and practicing. About 2 hours ago, I was doing another presentation on here, and I saw some of you on there. And that was on what is called Socratic method. And it all connects back to opportunity for our students, creating these reflective cycles that supports our students holistically. And it's the cognitive prompting coinciding with the ability of cognitive load to enhance our students' digital ecosystems. This reminds us of the opportunity for measurement, for technology scaling, but also provides opportunities for growth for and with our students. There are limitations in everything, as you know, and as you've probably been exposed to different programmatic conversations. The variables provide, opportunities to see things in limiters, but also provide opportunities to capture these emerging growth networks and these immersive tools that our students are working on to not only reflect on their ability and their capacity for online enriching and networking skills, but also to create this baseline for technological enhancements. And that's really where it's at for our students, finding ways to be able to measure tech adoption at scale, but also finding ways to create this multi-variable correlation for our students, all by supporting them in a holistic realm. So let's get back to our student engagement literature. There is much literature in this area, from qualitative to quantitative to mixed method design. And for this very short purpose, I'll just highlight a few areas. We have indicators of success of engagement, and then these indicators of success for engagement focus on active learning, interaction by faculty members, and also reflective capacities. These indicators not only are hallmarks for educational classrooms, but also it layers into the conversation of engagement, putting the time into practice with their students, but also putting the effort in. The students putting the time into practice, but also putting the effort into this area. But also layer that in, but what is called this emotional alignment to learning and education. There is a lot of conversation in this Trowler literature that focuses on that investment of time and effort and resources creates what is called an opening of engagement for our students. And it's at that epiphany of engagement that we have these predictors that enhance and support and create a levy for deepening success in terms of their achievement and persistence. Going back to an earlier slide that I talked about, supports, right? The supports for our students, these opening of these channels for understanding. It's at this epiphany, at this this hierarchical concern where we're finding that engaged students have the ability to retain information at a much higher rate and speed, over 20 to 30% higher. And so when we look at this in a holistic component, in a holistic mannerism, we're seeing that there is a connection between experience. There is a connection between technology, and there is a connection between outcomes and how we serve our students in the form of engagement. And this is critical through the understanding of our technological concerns or adaptations or future support systems for our students. It's both the academic and psychosocial gain that we understand and we support the inclusion of these areas. Moving forward just a tad, the next area here is this graduation and retention literature. There is much to say here that there is a persistence correlation with student-faculty interaction and the sense of belongingness. I know here for myself, being in these spaces, students want to feel part of the process. I think of myself as a teacher, but I really think of myself as a facilitator of knowledge. My students are engaged in the classroom because they feel connected to the subject matter and the subject matter expert. And it's because of that that they show up. They want more. They want to learn more, and they want to have a future knowing that they have been heard in the classroom. And what does that really mean? Well, there's a lot of demonstrated understanding in terms of how students, through their engagement in the classroom, they're focusing on, again, those high impact practices, internships, externships, being part of learning communities. What is that? That's this right now, right here at Westcliff University. We are in a learning community. We are in a space here right now. And so when we think about providing these retention pieces and spaces and places for our students, we have to find ways to create these markers. And research is saying that, yes, graduation rates continue to remain a central focus for many institutional accountabilities, but there's much more to that now. And this much more also focuses on social and emotional understandings for our students, the emotional intelligence of our students, and the ability to provide support for our students. It continues to grow and adapt and change, much like technology continues to grow, adapt, and change. And then we have career readiness literature. This literature is very compounded in different areas. Older literature is saying that, yes, there's a link to experiential learning. That literature is still saying very true today in terms of employability. And then we're also noticing that students need 21st century skills and framework. Years ago, you went to school, you got a degree, and technology didn't move as fast as it is right now, right? And so what's happening? Students that are graduating and they're going to get a career, they're going into the job, they are going in with many diversified skill sets. They are learning so fast these technological skills, and they're becoming career ready and having career readiness because they have to, right? They have to find ways to continue to stay on the metric. They have to find ways to be able to be employable, right? And they have to find ways to align themselves and be fluent in the digital marketplace, because without that, then the notion of employability, the rate of their employability would decline. And research is saying all this and more. And last but not least, I know, Jody, I'm pushing for the time here. There is conceptual model of study. Lots of things that are happening here. We have experiential learning, we have the notion of engagement, and we're having these strong positive correlations across a variety of different measurements and measures. The limitations of these research areas are compounded, and they're compounded for many different reasons. We're looking at the earnings of students in their jobs, and we're seeing that there is some concern. There is some concern in creating opportunities for future studies that combine a public and a private opportunity for growth. We're looking at these areas. We want integration. We want the ability to see how experiential intensity plays a role in technological adoptions. But we're also noticing that we need to provide a triangulation effect. And holistic student outcomes are always at the heartbeat of what's happening in these spaces. And going back to my earlier conversation, we want our students showing up. And if they're showing up in our classrooms and they're making those efforts to be part of that dialogue, and the faculty members are doing the same, they have a good, strong, fighting chance to be successful in the spaces of time. So as we look ahead,
I just
I'll
want
wrap
you to
this up.
wrap up. They are going to be
This one.
closing the breakout rooms very soon. So just so you know.
Oh gosh, Jody, look at this. I'm running out of time.
We have a hard stop at 8:40, just so you know. I was like,
all right, I'm going to speed this. Trends and future direction, adaptive learning systems, virtual internships and simulations, cross-institutional benchmarking and analytics, emphasis on equity and access and tech adoption, I love education so much, and I know my students here love it as equally. Why? Because they target both the hard and soft skill. It's an immersion of experience, and being here and being present, we have gone from good to great. And I thank you all for being here.